a closed door means God is trying to protect you from something that you are not ready for, that you're not mature enough for, that you may not even really like, that you think you want, but it isn't what you want. And that is the Lord protecting you. And your perspective really has to change. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Family Business with the Alessis podcast. Today, it is me, Stephanie Muiña, with my husband, Chris Muiña, and we are super excited to dive into today's topics. First of all, we just want to thank you all for watching. We have passed the 1 million views on YouTube, and it has been way past it, so let's keep growing to 2 million. I think we need those goals. We need those numbers. But this is a very exciting day. We want to dive into our topic about when things take long to develop, is God still in it? And when it comes to this topic, we really want to get the conversation going. So put in the comments what you're thinking. What are you waiting for? What process are you currently in the development for? And we have our own processes. We have our own stories that you're going to hear at the end of this podcast. But if you have anything, please post them in the comments because we love to hear what our audience is going through. What are you processing through so that we could pray about it and also include it in our podcast. But we're going to dive into this. Are you ready for when things take long to develop? Is God still in it?
I'm ready. And I know this topic has probably been way over preached and talked about of God is in the waiting and that whole thing. And we probably have our own experiences up until 36 years old and 29 years old. But there's people that are ahead of us in life that have waited on things that we haven't even got to yet.
Yeah.
That's not really what we're talking about. We're trying to figure out, is God in it or am I forcing this door?
Yeah.
How to know the difference, how to distinguish
Yeah.
whether he's kind of building something in us through this process of waiting, or if I'm creating an Ishmael
Yeah.
because I'm doing it on my own. Like
Yeah.
how to determine that? Like,
Yeah.
do we even know? Like,
Yeah.
I think by the end of this podcast, we'll have an answer. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get in it.
No, and I think that exactly what you said. We can talk about the waiting season and all that, but let's talk about that question. Am I pushing these doors open? Am I trying to make something happen that God does not want to happen? And this is such a tough place to be in because we look around, personally for me, this thought would appear in multiple capacities. One, with the music world, with me writing
That's you
songs.
currently right now where you're at in life.
Yeah. With the music world, wanting to see more of a response from that, wanting to see more open doors from that, more opportunities, and feeling like that hasn't quite come for all the things that I do in the songwriting world. Even with sometimes like marriage, it's like, man, other marriages have it pretty simple. Things come easy for them. Is it harder for us? Is it harder for me to have to get through certain things, to agree on certain things? Even with like family matters or whatever it is, it's like, why does it seem like everybody else has an open door? Why does everybody else have it so easy? And I'm over here pushing to make this happen, pushing to make that door happen. With the songwriting, it did make me question, is this even like what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this even what God wants me to do? And that is where I really reached ahead and I'm like, man, I'm sure people are in that same boat where you're trying to make a business happen. You're trying to you're in your single season and you really want to get married. And you question, am I supposed to get married? Am I supposed to be the one that just stays single forever? And just like, travel the world and search and serve my church? Is that supposed to be my life?
Well, a lot of times, like you said, it can cause you to reflect on yourself, which is not a bad thing. You probably should do that to a certain degree. But how much as Christians should we be, instead of being like, what's wrong with me? Maybe be like, God, what are you working out in me? Like, what am I missing from you? What have I not heard from you yet? You know, because you're right. Maybe you're a business owner that you're hustling. You are trying to grow that. And you look at all your competitors or your friends that have businesses and they're just taking off.
Yeah.
And you can look at them and be like, God, your hand is in their business. What about mine?
Yeah.
Or like you said, maybe you're single and you've seen your friends getting married and you're now in your 30s and you're like, did God forget about me?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's something that is like universal.
Yeah.
Everybody is in a waiting season.
Yeah.
So how should our response be to get us through that?
Yeah.
Because God's going to get us through it. No, I have never heard of somebody, or we don't read in the Bible of an occasion where God literally forgot about somebody
Mhm.
indefinitely.
Mhm.
Like your harvest will come.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just how do we respond during
To that. And I
that time?
think the difference between the typical waiting season, what we're talking about is not necessarily a waiting season. It's how do we respond in this developing season? Because I'm doing everything I need to be doing. I'm sowing the seeds that everybody else is sowing. But why am I not getting the result that everybody else is getting? And that's a tricky place to be in because you can lead to burnout and exhaustion or just wondering, okay, then what am I doing this for? What am I developing all of this for if I'm not seeing my dreams come true? And I will say it is a very good place to be in as an adult now that I'm on the other side of it, where some dreams kind of die and new dreams are born. I think that God uses those seasons where you're developing and nothing is really being produced to cause you to question, do I even want this dream? Am I actually ready for this harvest to come my way? Or do I need some more time to develop? Because I've talked to you about this before. With the music world, a harvest means traveling. If I am a successful singer songwriter, that means I have to be gone on Sundays. I have to be writing with people every single week. It fills up my schedule and it means I have to get on a plane and travel. I have 2 babies at home. I have you. I have a church that I really love serving at on a weekly basis. I don't think I'm ready to travel. I don't think I'm ready to leave and to do that yet. I'm not in that place and maybe that time will come, but if the Lord is saying, "Hey Steph, keep developing, but I'm going to bring the results later." If God is saying that, I've now grown to be okay with it because in the middle of all this developing, the Lord brought my dreams into alignment with his will. Where probably 2 years ago, my dreams were very out of alignment with his will. I wanted it now. I wanted that. I wanted exactly that career, that uh, type of song, that type of branding, whatever it is. I wanted to be that type of songwriter on my time. And all of that seasons of developing finally got me to this point where I said, you know what? I don't want to do it in my power anymore. I don't want to do it in my strength. I want to do it in God's power. And I want to do it in His timing because I don't think I'm going to like the result of what I pushed for, anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, when it comes to the question, is God still in it because it's taking so long to develop? We were discussing Easter and we're singing this song for Easter called Seasons by Hillsong, where it talks about that line that says, "You could have saved us in a second, but instead you sent a child." Where God could have redeemed all of this by sending Jesus as a warrior who came into Jerusalem and knocked everything down and took over and conquered and became the king of the world. But he didn't. He sent him as a child. And then it took 30 years before he even started his ministry. So God takes his time and then he takes more time even after that. So yeah, if things take a long time, God is always in it. He doesn't work within our timeline. He doesn't work within our expectations. He breaks all those barriers. He breaks all those boundaries and he does it on his time.
Yeah.
Thank God he does.
And he's never far.
Mhm.
Like I think of the story of the Israelites when they were enslaved in Egypt. 400 years.
Yeah.
That's like 5 generations
Yeah.
or more
Yeah.
of a whole people that all they knew was enslavement.
Yeah.
Very easy for them to be like, God forgot about us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that God that we read about Abraham and all that stuff, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not, he had a plan. And yeah, we read it in retrospect and we're like, no, God had a plan. It was only 400 years. 400 years is like 2 times the age of America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's crazy.
for sure.
But he's working it out. And a lot of times or all the time, he's more interested in how we're developing
Yeah.
than the end result of what we
Yeah,
want,
for sure.
you know?
So where do you think you had your season of development? Where did that happen for you?
I mean, it's continual. It's
Mm-hmm.
continual. Probably the biggest one that is in my adult life was, waiting to meet you.
Mm-hmm.
I met you when I was 30 years old. And that's a long time. I
Yeah.
know there's people in there that are still single and they're in their 30s, and it's a drag. It's hard, especially when you feel like you are ready.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you are ready,
Yeah.
but maybe the person that God has for you is not quite ready.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still working out the chess pieces to where your spouse will come.
Yeah.
But I think as Christians, we should be always in a season of harvest. Not for everything in our life, but we should always be producing fruit in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself like, hey, I'm like in this black hole where
Yeah.
nothing is happening in my life, then I can question, okay, what seeds have you sown in other things? Or are you so singularly focused on your future spouse that you have forgotten to sow seeds or invest in your education or your friends or just experiences or your travel or the family that you do have,
Yeah.
your cousins or your parents or your siblings. Um, we should always be in a season of harvest
Yeah. Yeah.
in some capacity, in some way as Christians.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's what we're here to
Sow and reap.
yeah, that's a principle. It's not
Yeah.
just on one thing that we want.
Yeah. So
So
I'm the harvest that you reaped.
that would probably be my biggest adult life harvest.
Yeah.
Now that's continue. I'm growing a business on the
Yeah.
side, and I see little harvest, but I'm pursuing it and growing it and trying to. I believe it's not where it's going to end.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a work in progress. Um, Even in our kids, like every day we are sowing seeds, trying to raise them up
Yeah.
how
And
they
that's a
should be.
huge development process.
Yeah, and probably
Oh
one
my
we won't see the
gosh.
harvest of that until 20 years from now.
And talk about hoping that God is in it.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing this right? Am I actually raising them to love God? And are we gonna in 16 years, see something different? It's like, no, God, I refuse. My children are gonna love the Lord. They're gonna serve the Lord. If any of them think they're gonna run away from this, then that's not happening. That is not one of the options.
Yeah. But I'm a big believer of just taking action
Yeah.
and taking those steps, but being sensitive to see about doors close.
Yeah.
If there's no closed doors, in my mind, then that's a door open,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna keep walking through that door until I run into a closed door.
Yeah.
So I'm a big like action person.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just kind of like how I do things.
No, for sure. And it the truth is, again, it's not waiting because it's the waiting season is, okay, I've done everything I can. Now I just have to sit around and wait for God to come through. It's those seasons where you are going on the dates. You are doing the dating apps. You are trying to grow the business. You are making the cold calls and nothing comes through. So in a way, it's not that nothing has come up yet. You actually feel like you have some shut doors in your way where you are getting the red light. I know how that feels, where it's like, what is going on? I just keep getting a red light. I can't get a green light like everybody else does. And you do look around and wonder, how did they get their green light? How did they get their open door? How did it happen so easily for them? And I learned two things. Number one, you have no idea the sacrifices those people made to get their green light.
And sometimes you don't even want to go through what they went through to get
No,
what
you
they got.
don't. And they're continuing to make those sacrifices. We were having a conversation with somebody the other day, they love their job. Is it what they would want? No, but they get a wonderful paycheck out of it where their wife can stay home, they can take care of their kids. And we realize, hey, that's kind of adulthood. If you want big success, it's going to come with big sacrifice, especially with the city that we live in.
Yeah.
And you don't want to ever judge, or you don't ever want to compare yourself to other people that have it easy, because you don't know how easy they actually have it. So that's one thing. And then number two, closed doors say so much more than open doors. Because open doors mean run, go, do it. Do what you want to do. You want to grow that business? You want to marry that person? You want to go and achieve that goal and you have a green light? Then go do it. You know exactly what you got to do. Make it happen. A closed door means God is trying to protect you from something that you are not ready for, that you're not mature enough for, that you may not even really like, that you think you want, but it isn't what you want. And that is the Lord protecting you. And your perspective really has to change. I would get so defeated when I would get a closed door. And I would become so disappointed, because that for me just deflated all of my excitement when I got a red light, when I got the closed door. Now that a little bit of time has passed and God has revealed what those closed doors meant, now when I get a red light, I am so grateful that the Lord has said no to something, because that means He's protecting me.
And that's a perfect example of what we're talking about, like how God is developing in us
Mm-hmm.
certain things that can only come through closed doors
Yeah.
and disappointments and no's and ref, rejections.
Yeah.
You've sent out emails and tried to call other writers to write with you, and you've gotten flat out no's.
Yeah.
That has produced in you a perseverance
Yeah.
and just like a hardening. And I'm going to trust in God even more in this,
Yeah.
because I have nobody else
Yeah.
to pray to and talk to and trust in if it's not God. If
Yeah.
God doesn't make this happen, there is no way that I can make it happen.
Yeah.
That's the end result. That's what
Yeah.
God wants to produce in us.
Yeah. No, and my mom always said, if you're going to push doors open, then be careful, because you might make a few Ishmaels along the way. That if God has given you that promise that He will make something happen in your life, let the Lord do it in His own time and in His own way. Because if you start to push to make it happen, you might end up with a result that you're stuck with forever. That wasn't what you really wanted. And it's more of a burden than it is a blessing. So I want to change the tone a little bit, and I want to ask you something, because we've been married for 5 years. It has not been perfect, but it's also been really great. We've learned so much about each other. And we can happily say we love marriage. Even if times get tense, we love marriage and we have a wonderful time. Um, Marriage, though, did take, for you and I, it required a lot of developing, a lot of hard conversations, a lot of arguments, a lot of late night talks, all of that, a lot of asking people for advice. Did you ever have a moment where you wondered, man, this is much harder than I expected? Like the developing of marriage, the development of like a unity in marriage, the leaving and cleaving, the becoming one, the becoming aligned, because that requires developing. And did you ever wonder, this is taking a little bit longer than I expected? And then what did you learn throughout that developing?
I don't know if I ever questioned like this is a lot harder than I thought or this is taking longer, but I did question when is this just gonna like flow? When is
Yeah.
this just gonna be easy? When is this just gonna like happen?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think we're still working that out.
But did you have a perspective shift that kind of helped you did learn to finally flow? Because we flow now. I feel
Hmm.
like we've reached a really good flow. 5 years, something clicked in us where it's like, okay, I accept you for who you are. Like I know who you are. I really like who you are. But was there a perspective change that you had to make?
I don't think there was like this one uh moment that I can turn to. I think it was just a series of moments and arguments that we got over,
Yeah.
and then we would look back and be like, man, wow, we grew from that,
Yeah.
or how dumb was that,
Yeah.
like a bunch of those to get us to where I am now. But I can't really pin it on one singular moment.
Yeah. So what are some of them? What are some of the moments?
I don't know. Uh,
I'm just trying to find a solid answer.
I think one of the big ones was being on the same team,
Mhm.
um, making sure that, or just realizing, okay, I can't just pull in my direction and her in her direction and expect us to come out on the same team on the like after.
Yeah.
Like, how do we figure out to where we are supporting each other and, you know, showing a unified front and really feeling like, hey, you are my helper, you are my teammate, I am your teammate, like for real.
Yeah.
Because I think in the beginning, it's like so superficial,
Yeah.
but then as soon as like the roots weren't there, but as
Yeah.
soon as there's an actual uh, obstacle that would challenge that, we would just fall apart
Yeah.
and we would go in our own directions.
Yeah.
And it revealed that we're not really on the same team.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we hit a like a I guess a confrontation or an
Yeah.
argument that really revealed our true hearts when it came to the whole teamwork thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we would look back on and be like, that was pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
we shouldn't be talking like that, or
Yeah.
our mindsets are really off.
Yeah.
At least we had the maturity after 5 years to realize it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we saw our sin and how ugly it was.
Yeah.
And then it kind of caused us to be like, okay, we need to continually work on this. It's
Yeah.
never going to be perfect, but we can't just be lackadaisy about being on the same team. Like
Yeah.
we always have to be reminding ourselves and each other about that.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned, there were moments where we wondered, when is this going to start being easy? And when is this going to start feeling like, okay, we've relaxed, we know each other. And I feel like we finally reached that point when we accepted each other for who we were and we didn't hold this responsibility to change each other. Like, I really, maybe this is what women have to do and not what men have to do. It's such a different process for men and women. But I know for me as a wife, I had to just let you be who you were and not be my husband's keeper and not be the one that's always like, okay, don't say it like that, Chris. Don't do this. No, stop. And just let you be. Let you and not just let you be, but actually accept who you are and be proud of who you are. Because I do see a lot of couples take each other for granted. And the gifts that their spouse have, all of their friends and all of their family appreciate those gifts, sometimes more than the spouse do. And like, for example, you are somebody who you do like to stay home and have a dinner at the table. You don't want to go out every single night. You like to have the kids in bed by a certain hour. You like to be home. You are the homebody. I can be out every single night. Like literally every single night I can go out. And I remember thinking, well gosh, you I would see your side of things in such a negative view. Until a couple years ago I realized, wait a minute. What he's doing is establishing. He doesn't hold me down. He establishes me. He gives us roots. He gives us a rhythm. He gives us a life to be proud of. And what clicked is when I noticed that people would appreciate that in you more than I would. And I would resent it more. And when I finally saw, wait a minute, God partnered me with this person for a reason. He blessed me with this person. He blessed me with their gifts. He blessed me with their strengths. Then that's when I started to be very grateful for the man that you were and grateful for your gifts and grateful for your personality. And that's when it wasn't just, okay, I leave you to God it actually was like a graduation from that of, you know what? God gave you to me. And I'm now really thankful for what God has given me. Where now that is what made me finally relax. Because when you said, no, let's go home, I didn't see it as a, oh, of course, he always wants to go home. It's, no, yeah, we need to go home. I need to go home and make a dinner. I want to go home and I want to chill. I want to get in bed early. We're going to be well rested. We will enjoy our life, our night more if we go home. And my perspective changed completely. And I would even encourage others that feel the same way in their marriage where you're wondering, when is the dust going to settle? When are we going to finally feel like we're in a rhythm or we're in a normal life or like we can we can live side by side with joy? I think it all comes down to perspective change.
So
Because are you sorry,
go finish.
but last thing, are you looking at your spouse like your greatest hindrance or like your greatest blessing? And if you can change your perspective in that way, then it will allow you to see they help guide me. They help ground me. We work together to strengthen each other.
So just looking at it as, okay, God gave me my spouse and he did it for a reason, which means I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a couple years in marriage to kind of let go of how how I do things or how I saw things done uh in my parents, because it's really the only guide we have until we get married, and to be like, okay, there's another way,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean it's the wrong way. So how's my perspective? And if I believe that God brought you to me or me to you, then that means your way is valid. And I
Mhm.
can't just write it off and be like, no, we're never going out. Or you only get one night a week to go out. Like, that's not right. That's not correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are things that you do that in the beginning would irk. Guys, you don't know how many times we'd show up to church on Sunday morning and
So
our
ticked.
kids would not have shoes, because she left them in the house, or
That happened twice.
or
Once. That only happened once.
but things like that. That now I look at it, I'm like, all right, no shoes. Like, it's gonna be an interesting day.
I know that was
And
stupid.
no, but in the beginning, those are things that I'm like, how can she forget their lunch? How can she forget their shoes?
I
Like,
never forgot their lunch.
I'm just making a point. Like, now I look at that and I'm like, that's my wife.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And it just means we're gonna have a different day than expected.
Yeah.
Or just gonna have to wash their feet at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Or, we'll order lunch in instead
Yeah.
of, packing lunch, or different things like that. That I don't look at them as such negative things. I just
Yeah.
look at them as, that's us,
Yeah.
and you bring a certain fun to our life
Yeah.
that if it was my way and everything was orderly, and maybe it would be a little bit more boring. So those things about you that in the beginning would kind of irk me,
Mhm.
I have to just look at them differently and be
Mhm.
like, my wife has a creative mind,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, she forgets some things, but she brings a lot of things to the table that I don't, or I
Yeah.
can't, or I'm not naturally good at. And without you, life would be boring.
Yeah.
Sure, it would be orderly, but it would be boring.
Oh, come
You
on.
know,
Babe, I'm not that bad. I do pretty good
I'm
now.
not saying you're bad. I'm saying that you bring a lot of fun
Yeah.
to life. And looking back at those stories now is like, that was funny. Our
Yeah.
our kids were on a Sunday morning
No
without shoes.
shoes. That was
You know,
ridiculous.
um,
And that was just we do have to admit that was just a miscommunication on both of our ends. We could have said, "I have the shoes." No, you don't think so? You still
no,
think it's my fault?
yeah.
Okay.
Then we're gonna talk about that in our next
And our next one,
podcast.
I don't wanna talk about it.
Gender roles.
Would you say that I am the joy of your life?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can you state that? Can you
I
just make
did.
that
I
statement?
did. I just
Just
did.
verbatim would be nice.
You are the joy of my life.
That's nice. You wanna say anything else?
No, what else are we gonna talk about?
Well, to reel it back, marriage needed a lot of development. But again, like it's crazy. God is so wise in how he uses those developing seasons. He uses them to change us. And he's not going to change. he's he's been developing humans since the beginning of the time. He knows what we need. He knows what we need to adjust. And I always see it as like the ocean is never going to change. The ocean is the ocean. When a storm comes, the storm's going to be awful. When it's a beautiful day, it's going to be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And the ocean is unpredictable, but it does whatever it wants. Us as sailors, if you have a boat and you are a sailor, you have to adjust your sails. You have to prepare for those changes. You have to prepare for those storms. And that's kind of how I see our relationship with the Lord whenever we're going through these developing seasons. God is going to do whatever he wants to do. He's going to tell you no because he knows. He's going to give you a green light because that's what he chose. The Bible says he chooses mercy to whom he decides mercy, and he chooses justice to those who need justice. I butchered that, but whatever. He's going to choose. He is the all wise one. He operates in his sovereignty and he never turns that off. That is who he is. So if that is who we're working with, I have to adjust. I have to adjust how I view my dreams. I have to adjust how I view my marriage. It is really up to me. And there will be times where it's like, okay, Lord, I've been faithful to you. I've been sowing the seeds you've told me to sow. I have been the wife you've needed me to be. So, Lord, come through. I've done my part. I'm trusting that you will do yours. But he uses those developing seasons to make us such a better person. And thank God he does, because Lord knows we all need to be a little better. We need to be a little bit more patient. We need to be more kind to our spouses and more grateful for what God gives us.
The key though is not to take things into your own hands when you are in that place of
Yeah.
nothing happening.
Yeah.
Like I always think of that Bible verse of how God brings the early and the latter rains.
Yeah.
So when the seed was sown in the ground, it rained. And they would plan it out according to the time of the year and stuff. And then it would be dry, especially in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And then right before harvest, there would be another rain.
Yeah.
And that would cause everything to, I guess, be ready for harvest.
Yeah.
And that's our life.
Yeah.
We're going to see a season of rain, of plenty, and then it's going to be dry, and then bam, another season of harvest and
Yeah.
plenty. And that's just how God operates
Yeah.
through all time in the Bible. That's the example we see how he operates time and time again.
Yeah.
And it's the same in our lives. We can't expect anything different. We have to be okay with it, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And we have to know, all right, God is in it. If I am following his commands, if I'm obedient to what he's saying, if I'm, plugged into a church and have a good relationship with the Lord, then I'm in his perfect will.
Yeah.
It just means it's going to take time.
Time. And last thing, something that I learned this past year during the Christmas time, we were having so many conversations with our family about ministry stuff. And people probably see it, but working with your family in ministry is hard. It is hard. I don't think it's the hardest thing out there. People probably have it much harder because thank God we're a family. We can be honest with each other and transparent. But there are days where we would reach ahead and wonder, when is this going to, when are we going to figure it out? Like, when is it going to feel like we know what we're doing? And this past Christmas time, we ran into a head with some things. I'll just be honest, it was my brother and I. We had just really come to this point of we got to figure something out because we don't know what we're doing. And I was asking my parents, I was asking other people for a solution. How do I work this stuff out with my brother? How do I work with my brother? How do I make this happen? And you know what everybody's responses were? Steph, we don't know. We don't know. That this is life. This is doing ministry with your family that is transitioning and that's growing and that's going into the next season. And I did get this image of the Lord gave us a massive boulder, and it is a huge rock boulder, and he gave us a hammer and a nail. And I will be spending the rest of my life chiseling and chiseling and chiseling. And I don't think I'm ever going to quite have it figured out. I'll have a few things figured out with ministry. I'll learn a lot, and the Lord's going to teach me a lot. But I don't think I'm ever going to become an expert at what we're doing because this is so much bigger than myself. This is so much bigger than my family God's always going to change things on us. And I just have to be in the position of, I'm going to be developing till the day I die. I'm going to be developing with my siblings, with you, with my kids, with my life, with my church, with ministry, all the time. And life is that. And I better get comfortable being uncomfortable. I have to find comfort in the discomfort because and I have to find a rhythm in the developing because this development process, it can last for another 10, 15 years. And that's just life. And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, this is exactly how God ordered it.
Well, just being comfortable in relying and trusting on God. Because as
Yeah.
soon as we have it figured out, what do we need God for?
Yeah.
And He knows
You're
that.
right. You're exactly right.
So, like you're saying, what are we doing in the midst of it? Are we
Yeah.
still seeking Him? Are we praying early in the morning? Are we doing those things?
Jeez.
And we do it more when we need Him more. That's just the
Jeez.
reality of humanity,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
That's good. Well, I love that. I think that you and I, we're in that season right now. And I have learned to fall in love with the developing season because we've seen some really good fruit from the developing. And the fact that we get the opportunity to develop more in our marriage and each other means that we're going to have more fruit at the end of this. So I'm very excited for that. And I hope that our listeners, you can make that perspective change too. That this isn't it's going to refine us, but it's not something that we've been burdened with. It's an opportunity that we've been blessed with to be in the developing, to become more like the Lord, to be more aligned with Him and aligned with each other and to find more peace with each other. The developing season is good and there's joy in it. So I hope that this blessed you. Want to say anything else?
No, that's good.
I hope that this blessed you today. Again, my name is Stephanie and this is my husband, Chris, and we just had a wonderful conversation where we shared about God in the developing season, and we pray that this bless you. Please put in the comments if you enjoyed this conversation and what are some things that you are currently developing in your life. We got honest with each other, so get honest with us in the comments. Thanks so much for listening today and thank you so much for listening today and thanks for tuning in to the Family Business with the Alessis. Hold on, let me do that one time. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and let's see you again for the Family Business with the Alessis.
Thanks so much for joining the Family Business today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you join us next time, because family is everybody's business.